let's continue, right? Because basically, the idea here is how do you little by little work through this breakup, right? Listen, one of the things I say is that you can go through a breakup for the next 5 years, or you could do it in the time that you want. Now, personally, right, I'm always going to share like how I got here, how I do what I do with you. Um, I've used this for heartbreak. Okay. And heartbreak can happen around you, about your kids, about a lover, about your long term husband or partner. Um, Heartbreak happens all the time to us. Basically, it's the idea that I thought I was going one way and someone either betrayed me or hurt me or the plan drastically changed. And it breaks our hearts. It really does. We have a feeling in our heart. Okay? Now, the longer we repress feelings and heartbreak, the longer it'll last. The longer, the more that you'll be at a restaurant or in your car, or someone will mention the person's name, or you'll hear a song, and all of that heartbreak will come up again. Now, personally, and people I teach know this, I'm like a boot camp um, dynamic meditator. And that means that when I'm going through something incredibly painful, I've in the past, I've emailed my friends and my family and said, I'm going to close my door and I'm not answering my phone. And I'm just going to really have all my feelings and say yes to them. And I'll play the songs. Listen to me. I'll play the songs. I'll look at the pictures. I'll have the memories. Okay? And I start saying yes and yes and yes. And some of it might be angry, some of it might be longing, some of it might be desperate wanting, some of it might be tender. It doesn't matter. I say yes. And I say yes for from Friday to Monday. Okay? I'll think of where we went, what we did, um, because it's a way for me to keep measuring that my feelings, I'm allowing all of my feelings to leave. It's not to say that even after I do, let's say, a weekend like that, which takes a lot of courage, by the way, it's hard. But I'd rather do it that way where when I'm in charge of my feelings, as opposed to my feelings, which for all of us, ambushing me in the middle of a dinner when someone mentions this person's name. Or when I feel competitive about, I don't know, my child, my work. I'd rather say yes to what I'm feeling, acknowledge it, okay? On my own and on my own terms, right? Right? I do this meditation so that I will allow these feelings want to leave. They're loving messengers, our feelings. Loving messengers. They say something's going on, something's going on. Okay. So you said, this is great. So in this breakup, right? During the drive, I kept going into these loops where I kept imagining this person calling me one day. Um, and my response kept playing out in two ways, you write. One where I listen and empathize, and I tell this person that I never stopped loving them. And the other is where I punish them. I'm mean, and I tell them that they deserve the pain that they're going through. Now, have we all had those feelings? Yes, especially after a heartbreak, especially after a betrayal. We've all had those feelings. And listen, what I love about your questions is because I can answer in so many ways. So, number one, loops, loops, loops. And right, we go through these mental loops because we're thinking that because we're looping, sometimes it makes us feel that the person is still there. Sometimes worry loops make us feel like we're doing something, right? We unfortunately, as humans, and this starts when we're little kids, we do have mental loops. And in dynamic meditation, we call it figuring it out. Okay, where right before bed you're like, figuring it out, figuring it out. We're looping, looping, looping. And basically, the thing about loops, though, is that they don't solve anything. They make us feel obsessive, like maybe 15 minutes will pass by and we've just been looping, looping, looping about a feeling, about a person, about an issue. And so there's a meditation, actually, right? That's called the Can I Let Go of Figuring It Out meditation. Because usually what happens when we loop, it's what I call the Siamese twins, right? When you're looping, 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 you end up always feeling bad. You end up feeling heavy, disappointed. You don't have the answer you're looking for. You're stuck in a maze. Okay. And so what I tell people is that figuring out churns, it's a churning, a churning, a churning. So it's churning all of this energy that doesn't have an answer. You would not be looping if you had an answer. Okay? When you have a question and you figure it out and then you can solve it, then there's no looping. But when you're looping, you're just churning, 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 okay? That goes for worry, it goes for obsessive thinking, it goes for lust, it goes for all of our feelings. Looping is normal. So on that one, okay, anytime you find yourself in what we call figure it outy, FIO, figure it out, right? I have a meditation. It's on the YouTube channel. Just go there and do your figuring out. But listen, you're always going to end up like this, like feeling like crap about yourself, feeling like crap about everything. It never ends good when you're looping. Okay? So you've got to say, can I immediately let this go? The figuring it out. The answer always comes, by the way. Always. Even great composers had to walk away from the piano, go for a walk, stop figuring it out. Okay? Stop figuring it out. And people will say to me, I'm being figure it outy about this. Okay? And it's because you're churning. So that's what I have to say about loops. And there's a figuring it out meditation on the YouTube channel. Okay? So let's talk about the duality in feelings, because that's another question you had that was super powerful. Okay, number one, listen, we say yes. Okay, one of the things that's really radical about the way I teach is that I really encourage saying yes to your hate, to your revengeful fantasies, but not yes to go do them. It's not saying yes, listen, to move into action. On the contrary, it's saying yes to let the feeling leave you. Like Ghostbusters, the ghost is coming out of you. Okay? But we're allowed to have angry, punishing feelings. We're allowed to want to have revenge. Okay, sometimes there's things that people have done to us that makes us hate them, where we are completely enslaved. Sometimes since we are kids, is by keeping the hate inside. Believe me, that is just a causeway, a freeway, a highway to cancer, to ulcers, to inflammation, to joint pain, to autoimmune diseases. Okay? We are allowed to have our angry feelings. Okay. The trick and the way that it's worked out in humanity is that as people have their feelings, they move straight into action, which is why they buy the gun, why they kill the people, why they hit their wives, why they hit their kids. right? Why there's active terrorism is because they have the feeling. And of course, check it out. It's energy. Energy requires movement, right? It requires doing something with it. You have to move energy. It has to be transmuted, transformed, used, right, by the laws of physics. Okay? What people do is the energy will come up, and with anger and hate and revenge and the desire to punish, people move it into action. And that's where we have destruction. Okay. Now check it out. In some religious traditions, okay, we are taught to repress anger, hate, revenge. Not a good idea, because where's that energy going to go? When we're ambushed by a feeling, when we see the same person that we hated, when we see the child molester. Okay? So, the action that we take, which I always say, listen, the highest form of action is allowing the feeling to come up without any shame or guilt. The feeling of wanting revenge, of wanting to punish the person that we hurt. We allow it so it can leave. I really need to be specific about this. Not so that we can move into actually enacting the revenge, enacting the punishment, because that's how children get abused. That's how acts of terrorism happen. But should we have our feelings? Yes, yes. And should they leave our body? Yes, because if not, they become illnesses. I can't say this enough. Okay? You say yes to it, you do the same thing until you ratchet that feeling down, until you have a quiet mind. And then you don't need to do anything. You don't have the feelings anymore of wanting to punish, of wanting revenge, of feeling angry. My son, who's a teenage boy, gets angry sometimes, and he yells and he screams and he throws things. Not all the time. He's a really actually shy person, but sometimes he has his feelings. And one of the things he says is like, so what do I do with them? And I say, you have them. Do you want to go and break down the door? Maybe not. Don't move them into action. Not you release them first. You release your sadness first, your grief, your rage, your jealousy, okay? And then we have a quieter mind, a clearer mind to make more powerful, intentional decisions. Not out of a rageful impulse. Okay, so you say yes to those feelings as well, right? Then you also say that you are going back and forth between loving her, forgiving her. That's normal. Now, sometimes when we're in a breakup mode, that can be a little more painful to feel, to say, I love this person, I want to forgive them. But as you allow that feeling to come up, you'll also notice, oh, that's gentler, that's softer. Because listen, ultimately, we're all moving towards love. We're all moving towards things feeling more conciliatory. We're all moving towards healing. And all healing is a sense of internal peace, right? When you've got acid reflux or an ulcer or a stomach ache or a headache, when it finally goes away is when we feel peaceful inside our bodies. The same thing goes for feelings. And so there's certain feelings just mechanically, just on a technical level, right? The algorithm, let's say, of certain feelings are just more peaceful. They give us more ease. They're loving. They make us feel delicious and good. And love is one of them. Forgiveness is another. Um, so allow yourself to have those feelings. Say yes to them too. Say yes to them too, because it's an energy. Okay. Um, and then you say, I don't want to keep into these loops. Um, and then you talk about moving into the future. Like, what's going to happen? Are we going to be together? Are we not going to be together? Okay. And that again goes back into figuring it out. And certainly, I'm a parent. Most parents do this. We're very, very, very figure it outy, okay, about the future. But we can loop. And when we're in heartbreak, we really feel that getting figure it outy about the future will relieve us from being in the present. And instead, why don't you just muster all of your courage and say, I'm going to have these feelings now? And why do I say courage? Listen, all of our fear of breakups, of abandonments, of betrayals are either based on something that happened in the past, okay? But also it's about a fear of the future. So when people say, I don't want to be in relationships because I might get hurt, what they're fearing is the feeling. So, what I encourage people to do is go ahead and have the feeling. So, you're afraid of public speaking, I'll say. Okay, let's do it right now, right? Let's sit, let's feel it right now. Let's say yes to the feeling so it can leave, 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 leave. So, by the time you actually get to the public speaking, you won't have the fear. Okay? And with people who are afraid of being in relationships because they'll be hurt or because they'll heartbreak, same thing. What's the fear? Say yes to it. Correct? That's why dynamic meditation, the tag is say yes, open up, allow. Right? It also means say yes to your abundance. Say yes to the good things that are coming. Say yes to what already came that was good. Say yes to feeling love again. Say yes. Okay? All right. So we talked about looping and figuring it out, and there's a meditation just for that, just for looping. You talked about the duality of feeling the rage, and sometimes that happens. But remember, our most important form of action is sitting right here and allowing these feelings to come up. It's super powerful. Okay. I always say the chair, wherever you're sitting to do a meditation, is the most it's like a throne. It's a sacred throne. Wherever you are sitting to do a meditation is the sacred throne of probability, of possibility, of power. Okay? Because that, when you go inside and you clean up on your feelings, you have the clearest mind, right? To start thinking of the good, to start finding your answers and your solutions. So, the seat of meditation, of self-reflection, of going inside is your most powerful piece, your throne, your sacred throne. Okay? Very good. Okay, so I hope I answered that question around feeling heartbroken.